Thank you for inviting me to this illustrious panel, and thank you, Sequoia, Fiona, and Loki, for your excellent introduction of the issues. And thanks to all of you for being here, for caring about peace and cooperation in a world of too many leaders gone mad on power while incapable of addressing anything real or essential. I am coming to you from the US, the belly of the beast, and the campaign we started over a year ago at CODEPINK, China is not our enemy. I worry about the no Cold War message because, like the Cold War with Russia, this is an aggression from the US on China. History and the media have continued to name things like wars that have been US aggressions on other countries and other peoples. The need by the Allied powers to ensure Western imperialism is clearly in the words we see out of Biden's mouth at the G7 and NATO. This harkens back to the behaviors of those leading the US and Britain after World War II. This aggression on China sits on the really deep-seated racism of the yellow peril, the insane anti-communist passions, while it is tied to now the collapse of the West and the rise of populism. Recent polls show people are more frightened of the US. It was the Alliance of Democracies Foundation. It conducted a poll of 50,000 people in 53 countries between February and April of this year that found 44% seeing the US as a threat to democracy in their countries, where China was 38 and Russia 28, which makes nonsense of the US efforts to be the rulers of the world, as Biden continues to insist. We must remember that 2 A-bombs were dropped by the US on Japan, and millions died in US aggressions on Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. This aggression on China is not the same as the US-Soviet Cold War. And Boris Johnson may say he does not want a Cold War, but aggressions are already in play. Western powers have been building to oppress and aggress on China for a very long time. The CIA was in Tibet for 20 years before Nixon agreed to take them out. They've been working to destabilize Xinjiang for decades and funded operatives in Hong Kong. All of this can be seen as violating the communiques with China. And claiming ownership of the Indo-Pacific region, as Biden has done, is megalomania added to his already failing memory, which is beyond problematic. Adding to this insistence that China is violating some rules-based international order, whose rules? Western imperialism have broken the rules of decency, humanity, morality, and international law for centuries, and fervently in the decades. The US strategic ambiguity around Taiwan for decades is no longer ambiguous. The US presence in the South China Sea can already be named an act of war, according to those communiques with China. What did it feel like to the US when during the Bay of Pigs there were nuclear missiles so close? Yes, thank you, Loki, for bringing that up. We are also destroying islands around China to put in missile bases, destroying islands and violating the human rights of the indigenous peoples who live there. Something that's also concerning is Europe's approval of Biden. Be careful. The Democratic Party just knows how to tell better stories and make easy gestures, but real systemic changes for the people, not. Biden and his crew are warmongers. They are operating from the Rumsfeld memo on US hegemony of 1991. When it was released, it was laughed at by the New York Times, Washington Post, and Guardian, all the world media. It is now Biden and his team's blueprint. We can hear it in every speech. He and the US need to be at the head of the table, all while mouthing democracy. A country of 3 million that is failing at everything, not voted into the power of the world. It bullies, steals, oppressions, sanctions, drones, and bombs its way to power, making all that democracy talk hypocrisy. In the US, the propaganda of the last year has been targeted effectively at the left and progressives. My arguments every day are with them, and they have swallowed the Kool-Aid. It is also funded by tax money to steal more money from taxpayers for more weapons and more. A Senate bill that was full of funding aggression on China through various agencies, including funding propaganda to denounce China's Belt and Road Initiative and funding AI at the failed Office of Homeland Security, while adding billions to an already bloated budget, went through like a knife through hot butter, seeing only one no vote on the side of the Democrats. That was Bernie Sanders. All while the streets of the United States are full of homeless, the world needs vaccines and cooperation with China on the global climate chaos we all face. So that bill has moved to a bill in Congress. It's called the EAGLE Act, Ensuring American Global Leadership and Engagement. The EAGLE Act, again, spending billions on polluting the environment with military exercises, weapons, troop and ship buildups to maintain domination of the Indo-Pacific. This also with no opposition. All some members of Congress have offered is to pull off some of the worst parts. It too will go through like a knife through hot butter, as there is no opposition to Biden for fear of what I am not sure. What we have learned in the last year is not to get caught up in their propaganda, but to pivot from their narratives to the one we can stand on every day. War is not the answer. The first casualties of war are truth and human rights. So if you are doing anything to promote war, you are stealing the future from the peoples of the world and driving more inequality. We need a big tent, as Fiona said earlier. We work always on building a big tent. And that's why I'm here with No Cold War. That's why we're so grateful for what No Cold War is doing around the world. In the US, we also have been engaging with everyone who has a position of no war. Strange bedfellows always, but no matter the ideology or how they arrived at this position, everyone is invited into the tent of no war with China. We need a global call for peace like never before. A war between China and the US is unthinkable, and building to it steals from everyone. We, all of us, need to be teachers like Loki. We need to, you can find some teachings at CODEPINK.org, but we need to be the debunkers, the teachers, and to those closest to us. Those are who is targeted with this propaganda. We can't let them be pulled in by the propaganda. We need to turn them into more teachers. You also need to be debunking the propaganda daily. Do not let journalists—
Just to let you know, Jodie, coming up to time, thank you.
Yes, do not let journalists get away with their lies. Call them out. Call them out on Twitter, call them out in personal messages, call them out for supporting war. If the conversation is not leading to global cooperations, leaders fulfilling the essential needs of their people, it is a fail. No need to get in the weeds of he said, she said, that the propaganda is built to do. The message is clear. War is not the answer. China is not the enemy. We need a peace economy of giving, sharing, caring, thriving, resilient, renewable Earth. You can find more at codepink.org/China. Thank you for having me.